Thanks, Leonardo's for our dinner tonight, and thanks, Steve, for dessert and cake. If there's leftovers, feel free to take some home. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Let's see. Where do we start? Share respectfully, respect one another's space, all those good things. We're gonna just some introductions so everyone has a chance to talk into the microphone tonight. How it is. And then our next item is just going to be an open forum, announcements. There'll be a chance to share anything that's coming or anything you want to, just share with the neighborhood. And then some speakers. So I'm Sarah, by the way. Friends call me Sarah. Both are good. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm in Ward 7. Like I said, I'm going to invite everyone to introduce themselves with your name, if you'd like, and what word you're coming from. Maybe I'll start over with Mark, and I can pass you my microphone. Start it off.
Steering committee, my name's Mark, Ward 4. Any pronoun will do, but he, him, and I'm on.
I'm Linda Air and I'm in Ward 4.
Jim Palmer, also Ward 4.
Sarah Carpenter, Ward 4, and I'm the city councilor. Karen Butt, she, Ward 7.
Martha Malthus, she, her. I'm Annie Lawson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm on the steering committee and Ward 4, and maybe I'll pass it this way. Susan Ogden, she, her.
Bernie Carver, they, them, Ward 7.
Sal Millichamp, she or they, and
Jacob Lumbra. I think I'm Ward 7. Hi, everyone. Nick Tatakis, he, him, Ward 7.
Steve Brown, Ward 7.
Allie Davis, Ward 4.
Dave Marr, Ward 4.
He, him, Ward 4.
Jane McDonald, Ward 7.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nora, she, her, and I am at Ward 3. Thanks for letting me cry.
Sally Cook, she, her, Ward 7.
Phil Baruth. He, him, Ward 4.
Kendra Sowers, she, her, Ward 4. I'm also your North District School Commissioner.
Charles Dinklage, married to this lovely school commissioner. Ward 4.
Mary Jane McMahon, Ward 7.
Kathleen Miles, Ward 7. Lynn Eisenbright, Ward.
hi, Kieran Turner, Ward 4, she, her pronoun.
Monica Ivanchich, she, her pronouns, Ward 7, and I'm also your 7 school commissioner.
Amanda Rodenberg, she, her, Ward.
Nick Thayer, he, him, and Ward 2.
Isaac Bromley, he, him, Ward 4.
He, him, Ward 7.
Jim Whitmer, he, him, Ward 7.
Lucy, Ward 7.
This is Oliver, Ward. Harley Bennett, Ward 7, she, her.
Hank Prensky, Ward.
Steve Norbin, Ward 4.
Trish.
Ward 7, she, they pronoun.
Hello,
he, him, Ward 7.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, thanks, everyone. I also heard some great actions while we were all having dinner, so it sounds like we're making new friends. It's always exciting. Yeah, let's jump right into our open forum. So this is a chance, to make any announcements, about things that are on your mind to the neighborhood or our city, upcoming events. Yeah, I know there's at least a couple. I know Martha's got one to start us off, and then other raise your hand and we'll tally. Yes, thank you, Mark. Please definitely speak clearly into the microphone.
Martha Malpas again. I have a number 3 announced Heineberg Community Senior Center, which, if you don't know, has different activities available. I have a couple copies of the calendar if anybody. One of the events that's on Friday, April the 4th, is a seed planting party. Come and all supplies will be provided. Another thing, I think pretty exciting, there is going to be on Saturday 19th, a New North End pop-up station. We are going to celebrate ourselves. We are going to have fun. We're going to get to know ourselves. There are plans for a lot of different music, food stalls, tie-dyeing. It's still in the planning stages, but it'll be a lot of fun. And some of the are at the Heineberg Center, which, if you don't know where it is, it's kind of across from St. Mark's. The actual address is Heineberg. If you don't know, you can ask me. And something that's more serious, but very important. On Wednesday, April the 16th at 1 p.m., there is going to be a presentation by the Vermont Ethics Network about the advance. They're going to give information on what you need to know to fill out an initiative, and you can ask questions. And for me, I'm a social worker who has worked in the emergency room. ICU. You want to have your wishes on record. That's, the middle of a crisis is no place to make life and death decisions. You want to think about it ahead of time, information you want to talk to the people who are close to you and by your decisions and put them in writing. So that's on Wednesday, 18th, at 1 p.m. at the center. I have an advance directive. It's, I think it's old enough that I should probably take another look at it to date, because I know how important it is. So Heineberg has a telephone number, a website, and is also on Facebook. So information is easily accessible to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Martha. I saw there was another announcement back there. Go ahead.
Yep. Hi again. Since this is my first time attending Ward 4-7 meeting, I apologize if this was already discussed, but also repeating it. COTS is having its annual COTS walk the 1st of May, Sunday, May 4th, and registration is live online at give.cots, that's plural, COTS online /COTS walk 2025. And the theme this year, a better future. You'll get to do your usual route of Battery Park and going up, but you'll also get to pass the new winter warming shelter that COTS acquired, and it's going to be the future way station. So
Thanks for that. Monica, looks like you have an announcement. There's a microphone here.
For those of you who were here announced a school district event last month that was supposed to happen tonight, but postponed to April 9th. And it is an extension of Black History celebrating Women's History Month. And the event is called Sharing Our Story, Creating Excellence of Black Women Leaders. So it's on April 9th at Main Street, 6 to 8. And the event will feature Farine Paris, who's an American teller and has her own company called All Heart Inspirations. Xander, who is a principal at Hunt. A senior, a BH Nadia Sila, a professor from UVM, Eliana, from the Department of Education. And then also, last but not least, Esther Charleston, who is a woman who ran for governor in the last election in November. So come check it out. It also involves prizes, face painting, and a bake sale. And there'll be light snacks.
I don't have an announcement. I just wanted to say thank you for passing the school budget. It's so appreciated as a parent, and I'm an educator in another district. It matters how much you support the community and very sorry. That was crazy. I don't know. And
I was excited about the school budget.
anyway, yes, thank you as a community for supporting it. It really makes a difference and it makes this a
Hi, my name's Trisha, like I said before, and I'm an educator and I currently work in South Burlington, but I will be hosting a pop-up parents night out event at the First Congressional Church on April 25th. So I just wanted to get the word out and go on Front Porch Forum.
Thanks for so far. I know Charlie's got a quick one, and then we'll go to you, Steve.
Charlie, and so there is a bike path, a recreation path that runs along Route 127. It starts kind of like in downtown Burlington and it follows the Beltline, but it goes right past basically the new North End. There's a bike path. There's a bike path that goes right past. So a group of people together who are working together based on the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. And what they're doing is they're looking at the feasibility of when that bike path gets the route to North Avenue, that it shoots up the last piece of the Beltline. It opens up on North Avenue, very close to the. So there's some of us, including myself, representing Ward 2, and then Evan is at the new North End, plus all these designers and developers and working on that. And so there's a piece of paper floating around that I've got about 10 copies to give you the information on this because the early stages. So what the picture just shows you is where this is happening. So we're interested in where that bike path goes. Myself, Charlie in Ward 2, NPA, or Evan, who's on your city, or anyone from the Chittenden County Regional Planning, because it could be a real feather in the cap and to have that bike path go right from downtown, right. Okay.
Speakers right in front of?
Yes.
That causes possible.
No, that's the one.
That's the outgoing for the recording,
Thanks.
so that's not causing feedback. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Say, I'm just warning you that sometime this summer, you're going to hear a lot more about this, right? Phase, and there's 3 options that are not listed here, 2 of which are viable, not the bridge to nowhere. That's probably not going to happen. But, so if anybody, bike path extending, stay in touch or talk to me or talk to Evan, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
One more copy.
Hi, my name is Jim Whitmer, and my husband Randy and I are new Ward 7. We moved in August, and I've gotten involved with the North End Food Pantry. Make an announcement that this Sunday from 10 to 12, there be a collection of food and non-perishable food, new or gently used. And so it's just down the road here on North Ave. So anybody who has things, come and see it. Thank you.
Okay, we might need to turn that. Thank you.
Yeah. Steve, you have an announcement?
I'm Steve Brown. I'm on the steering committee for Ward 7, and I'm a chef. And I want to cook eventually for the whole entire city. But for now, it's you guys and others. We had a Juniper Cafe at our building, Juniper House, just the other day, where we served corn chowder and ravioli soup. Really good. But my mission now is through Shawnee that we're supposed to have steering committee meetings, all wards that we meet to get in sync with the other wards in the city. And I will cook for that meeting when it happens. To make that happen, you can let them know. We can try to make that happen in the future. And beyond that, have an all wards barbecue at the end of the year. And I would like to cook for all of you, coordinate the cooking of that. So that's my goal with, I'm taking this Vermont Community Leadership. That's my thing that I'm doing right now. So thank you.
People were doing announcements, so I just figured I should do one. I'm on the Berlin Council. We meet the first Wednesday of every month, so we'll be meeting on April 2nd. Public Works on Pine Street, and this month we're going to be meeting to have Wellington Walk and Bike Council come, so we can talk about regional connections and the pedestrian bridge. So.
Fabulous. Announcements, everyone. And keep in touch on Front Porch Forum. I know that's for anybody who's, online, and keep sending the announcements. So we'll move on to our next agenda point, which is, Bill Baruth up for some announcements, updates of what's going on in your world.
As you just heard, I was thinking driving over here, it was almost exactly 25 years ago. Asked for votes to be school commissioner for 2 years. I wound up doing 2. So we're currently on the board. I feel for you. And then I've been elected for 16 years next year. And I thank you for all of that. Yeah, of course. So there's a lot going on, but I'm going to touch on what I've already heard from people since I walked in the room, concerned about. So first, the GA program, as we call it, the homelessness problem. I just want to let you know what we're doing on that. And so That program developed during the pandemic. Government paid 100% to put all of those people, now about three. Sometimes it's talked about in terms of families. Almost 5 in that population. So 2,500 adults, 500 kids, many disabled. If you want to define the most, that's who it is. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, because you've seen and met these people in this building. Burlington has done yeoman's work, these folks. So the governor has referred to the as a failed program. And I think that is true in the sense that we were told some years ago now, 5 years, that was building temporary shelters, and we were going to be moving people out of motels, shelters, then into permanent shelters, into low income housing of affordable options. But we have found that that has not been. So we've been continuing the motel program in the absence of anything. So we're running right up on the deadline now. On April 1st, the people will be exited from the motels. And as you know, what happens, what comes, you start seeing them on Shelburne Road. You start seeing people in this center if the weather is very cold. But you all Church Street, and all of that contributes to a general sense that we as taking care of our most vulnerable, and that our public safety issues are becoming visible. Public safety is fraying. And so you have a whole set of policy issues that come out of that, and political that comes out of that. So what we have done, that is the House and the Senate, together a budget adjustment where we adjust last year's budget and we try to, but also if there's anything happening of an emergency nature, we take care of it in the budget adjustment. So the House brought forward a proposal to keep the motels, those that are housed currently there, until June, when the warm weather. And in the meantime, we are working on a system-wide of the whole program. So this would move money, expertise, authority out to the community agencies in 5 different regions in the state. So that work is going on in committee to design that program that will be so that we don't have Groundhog Day every time the cold weather ends. So until that, the 3-month extension from April 1st to June, perfect sense to me and to the Senate and to the House. So we sent the governor a budget adjustment in which we extended this program for 3 months, with the idea that in the budget was coming this more all-encompassing revamp of the program. The governor vetoed it, as you probably know. And there were about 15 items that he mentioned in our budget adjustment that he had a problem. One of those was the motel program. So the Speaker of the House and I and some others sat down, and we had a talk with one another about what we really needed in the budget adjustment. Decided after that meeting to give the governor every single thing he asked for, except on housing population. So he asked for a total of about $15 million in his asks for a new budget adjustment. We gave him every dollar. We gave him everything he wanted, but the one thing we asked in return was give a 3-month extension to these folks till we get to the warmer weather and we have this program ready to roll out. Now said he will veto again, and the only thing on the table is whether or not be exited on April 1st. So that's where we are at this exact, where I left the State House, we were talking about, is there any possibility of as with the governor, but he seems very clear that what he's willing to do on that last day is break the 15 let's take the 3,000. He's willing to, leave about 800 in the, everybody else must exit. And so we're, the idea that we've given you everything else. We want these people, to be, forced with nowhere to go onto the street. And many of them are disabled and not disabled in a light. We're talking, people who are in wheelchairs, people who are carrying their oxygen. So the families, some of the families have 2, 3, 4 kids. And these folks were in a car or on the street before the motel. So, and I'm happy at the end to answer questions about it, but I want to just transition quickly to the piece that you're probably hearing a lot about, and that's the education transformation. So I don't have to tell any of you, if you own a home in Burlington, that tax up, property taxes and up over the last couple of years in a dramatic way. Most of that, and I know that people on the school board here worked like dogs, get it as low as they could. We did in the State House as well. But last year, health 16%. And as anybody who's ever served on a school board or even in the select board or the city council, you know that it's almost all personnel costs. So when healthcare goes up 16%, that gets into the property tax ultimately. And last year in the December 1 letter, looking at an increase of maybe somewhere between 18 and 20%. Legislature brought that down. We spent $70 million to 13.8. We felt like that was what we could do fiscally with hurting our bond rating and other things. But then the November election came. Voters spoke very loudly around the state that they wanted property taxes lower. Phil Scott was successful in convincing folks that we should do that. And we are now planning, just so all of you know, for this year, we're planning something flat property tax. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost $100 million to buy down the property tax to either 1%. Now, here's the contrast I would make. We're going to spend $120 million property tax down for people who have a house. And then for people who house, the governor is insisting that he's not going to spend 1.8 million motels. So we took out the 1.8 million because on hand, and we said, okay, let's not spend the 1.8 million. Let's existing resources, which we gave you last year, just keep them in the motels appropriation. And he's still threatening to do it. So on the one hand, demanding that and homeowners pay 0% property tax at the cost of 120 million property or a home, you must leave a or what. So right now is trying to get my head around both those things. I am absolutely committed to reducing the property tax down. People had a horrible couple of years with their property. And that's me. I live at 145 Star Farm Road. And before that, on Muirfield. So I know that those property taxes, it affects your whole income. But we can afford to bring that down, and we can afford to keep those people housed until the warm weather comes. That's what I plan to say. Happy to answer questions. And yeah.
Thanks. So, it doesn't sound like
Now it's
I had put the. So I still believe, please, anybody in the room, if
this population. We have a lot of people who are building new homes, big homes. We used to call them McMansions.
Yeah.
A fair amount. Certainly don't need to percent tax on their homes. I used to work at one of the big, I know that they are open even during emergencies, they never close. Their prices are out of this world. So now we're gonna get all these verbal, tariff. But for Vermont, for the rest of the nation, we've got to start tax in their financial wealthy.
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to go at what you're talking about. I was speaking broadly, gonna bring the property tax down to zero. For second homes, we are increasing what people pay for their second homes. Yeah. Yeah.
How much are you going to tax second home?
Can't tell you right now. The finance committee is working on a proposal. Did their work and is in the process of getting it to us. But I know that our one place, the tax department for a long time said that they had finding people with second homes and having software that would allow us to effectively tax second homes. That is no longer the case. So we are, and you know, we're not being shy about cost containment in school budgets as well. Burlington has done a great, I think, keeping its budget down. I think generally across the state, people this time around, you saw most of the budgets passed, and the reason was that people were especially careful. School boards were especially careful. It should be. But in addition to that, we're looking at, the House I know is looking at minimum class sizes, things like minimum average daily membership count for us, so that we're not subject to the critique that we've got schools that are half. And we do have some around the state, places where they're combining grades. First and second grade have 8 kids in those 2 grades. I think those kids, personally, they would be better off going to a school 6 miles down the road where they would be with us, have more resources, et cetera. So that's not my job, those decisions in districts, but I feel people are coming to those necessities now. Our school system really is among the most expensive in the nation. Got into the legislature, we were also ranked one of the highest in terms of quality. Our outcomes are not what they once were. Some people believe that's pandemic related. I think there's some truth to that, but we should be working on all sides, quality side, and then, as you say, people who own second or third homes, charge them more. Also, the short term is something that the Airbnb folks, those kinds of arrangements under new scrutiny, because they take units off the market for people to live in, the rarity and the prices of housing. So if we tax them, and that helps everybody, I think, as well as a little more regulation on them, what we do now for all the other rentals.
Senator.
Yeah, this is on. What sort of alternatives to the hotel program are you looking into? I think you mentioned you're looking at
Yep.
5 districts.
So during the pandemic, you know, a couple of silver, one of them was started to send us a lot of money. I don't know if you remember, but go back 4 years ago, tsunami of money that came in. We had about $5 billion that came into the, we put more than $1 billion of that into housing. And we did it over a 3-year period. And we changed for instance, Act 250 rules. So that I was talking to earlier. We changed the Act 250 rules so that communities like Burlington and Winooski have robust sewer and infrastructure and zoning exempt now from Act 250. And that and a bunch of other provisions in were designed to make communities like Burlington and Winooski very easy, flexible places to put in affordable housing. So there's that. There's the money that, then the other thing is, what do you do with folks, if you don't want them in motel, where are they gonna go? So we've been trying to stand up more permanent. The problem, well, there's a number of problems, but one of them is best practice is not to congregate shelters, but to have some small privacy for the people in these shelters. And so they're expensive to stand up their staff. But my way of looking at it is we're spending 60 or 50 or 60 million on the motel program now. I think we should, as the administration did 6 years ago, I think, they put out an RFP to all the state asking for, there was a proposal from Burlington to use the Cherry Street facility, the state-owned, as a permanent shelter. And the Scott administration rejected that. I think, honestly, they didn't want permanent shelters at that time. I think the rest of us have learned some lessons. I think now permanent shelters are understood to be, because the thought pre-pandemic was you don't need permanent shelters, you just need your shelter. And I think now the situation we're in is fundamentally different. We are going to have these folks with us into the future. So permanent place, all the major communities, places plural, where they can go. So the administration is developing some of those proposals now, countering the argument that if they're exiting people on April 1st, they're not doing anything. So there is a shelter being built, but that's going to accelerate when we hopefully pass the House's bill. It's H91 if you want to follow along with it. And it's a revamp of the motel program. As I said, responsibility, but also money and authority out to community programs. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I?
Got questions all over the place.
I exceed authority.
Oh, I was gonna ask about education again.
Yeah, I'm very interested because I don't really understand the whole 100 school district into 5. What are the plans? Where do you know that?
Sure. So the governor, if it somehow put out a plan for 5 school districts, north, south, east, west, you would become part of one of those very large districts. I'm part of his plan that was greeted in the legislature with the most skepticism. So we wanted them to come to the table because the Scott administration traditionally has not come to the table until April or May to weigh in. So we invited them, come in, we'll give you space in all of our money committees and policy committees to present your proposals. There's credit, he took us up on it. Secretary Zoe Saunders come in, his plan. There are some parts of it that I think there is broad-based support. So very quickly, one of those is a foundation formula, which is being used in many of the other states. And what it is a formula that through various data analysis, they figure out what the average student needs for quality education. Then in our district, we weight that, right? And weight Burlington and Winooski get back the money that we spend for kids that are more expensive. So, my kids all went through Flynn and middle school here, school. Burlington and Winooski, far and away the most diverse in the state. Forever proud of that. Taught my kids to be forever proud of that. And I'll give you a quick example. When my daughter Gwendolyn was at Flynn, girl who had come from Africa, couldn't speak English yet, but she was in school, play in the playground. Nobody was at fault. They just were kids and they got in a fight. And it would have been very problematic because the young girl from Africa couldn't make herself. The parents that got involved couldn't make themselves known. We were all in the principal's office, and Burlington had hired cultural specialists and a translator. And about 7 of us sat around a table, and we, with the translation, we worked it out. The kids, everything was fine. And that's the way it should be, but those people had to be paid. So it's more expensive to educate ELL students, more expensive to educate seniors opposed to preschoolers. So that weighting has to be part of the formula. And last year or the year before, we just got the new weights in place. It has helped Burlington and Winooski. So rest assured, I'm not giving that. Whatever happens, it's going to be weighted. Take that to the bank. The question is what to do over and above that foundation. So about allowing communities to, you get the foundation formula weighted, or talked about allowing communities to tax locally within their own community, their own over and above that, if they wanted to. Now, if you think about that, back to what we had before the Brigham decision, which is wealthy communities say, well, let's say they're spending $19,000 a kid. They say, and 6,000 more and spend 25,000 a kid. There are lots of communities in the state that afford to do that. So you'll wind up again with these inequities. So the governor, how that wouldn't trigger a Brigham problem, as we call it. But we're continue to present on that. So in my way of thinking, a foundation would be okay. It would put some spending authority in Montpelier, which we don't currently have. Spending authority is 100% at the local level. So your school board members come up with a budget, approve it, and then those all get added up and Montpelier pays the tab. So when we have the property tax spikes, people look at us and we really don't have any weight. So the foundation formula gives us some input, but still we're trying to mimic what school boards have been doing to create a quality education. So weighted and Brigham proof, I am fine with. The governance, I'm not excited about. And I think what you'll see is the foundation form move to the fore in the next couple of months. The governance piece of it will be somewhat backburnered. We'll still be studying it. But my sense right now is that the legislature is looking to rush into governance change. If that helps.
Moving on with the education questions. First off, the foundation hopefully be set by the legislature and not the governor and
Yes.
the secretary, neither of whom I foundation that is
No,
fair for students in
it will be
our
us.
state. And I think a big part of the problem is that it's a property tax that funds our education and it's an income tax, and then that would be much simpler because although this is complicated, people, because of income adjustments for people that but don't have high incomes, then they get refunds and rebates.
Yeah.
But so people are paying relatively fair amounts, except for, as you pointed out, the highest income in our state. So I would really love to see the legislature look toward change to an income tax. Public Assets has put out numbers on this, and that it's a very doable and a consistent amount of money over the time. I know that that's one of the arguments against it. So that is one of them. And yeah, governance is definitely not open this year. I'm a public school teacher. If you look to districts nearby here that had to merge, it took 10 years for one district to get all of their parts together.
Under Act
So,
46, you mean?
yeah, and that, I mean, and so there's chance that
Yeah.
there's going to be 5 districts in a year. Like that's literally an impossible task. So
Yeah,
I'm glad falling by the wayside.
And just to the foundation formula itself, in the State House, the governor proposes, the legislature disposes.
Yeah,
And when it comes
you
to,
guys do once.
well, yeah, but what I would say is that when it comes to, we really do have the authority there in terms of the foundation. I'm sure that if we go to that system, this governor to follow will have strong ideas about it, but so will we. I'm sorry, didn't you have a question? Or did you already ask me? Right. Well, if you remember Act 46, Act 46 brought us from 109 down to over 100. And when people look back, it's hard to find savings. And I think there's a pretty easy answer for that, which is school districts, when they consolidated, they were able on, eliminating redundancy, economies of scale, and let's say having two principals, things like that. So we actually did see reductions, but then in the schools, you've got deferred maintenance that's been there for 20 years, and maybe it's in millions of dollars. You're almost going to lose your accreditation because it's leaking. So at that point, what do you do with your savings? Do you pass them back to and say, this is all the money we realized, or you do use it for what you were sent there to make the property what it needs to be for a child's education, to make the workforce, the teachers, what you need. In our day and age, we've got mental health issues in school. You need behavioral specialists for that. Para-educators who are trained for those sorts of situations. That costs money. So what we're trying to do now is, as we look at governance, we're trying, okay, if you can show us the savings, we're willing to go further down the path. The Scott administration has closed the 5 districts. They have not shown the savings. And I think it's because they're reluctant to admit that the savings would come in terms of closing the state, and they don't want to touch off that fight. Yeah. So anyway, fair to say that we're a little skeptical. He also has a 12 district plan as Plan B. He proposed them both at once. If you don't like 5, go to 12. But again, as you say, we're times that many roughly now. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the first things that concerned, okay. All right, yeah.
Sorry, I keep forgetting I'm not calling.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Awesome. I just want to ask a couple of questions about kind of Burlingtonians and what matters here. State construction aid.
Yeah.
Been talked about, and it's huge because part of our taxes the past year and going forward are all going to be for Burlington High School and Tech Center. States in the United States that we don't have state construction aid of some red states, blue states. So it's huge. Needs to be part of the education plan that we talk about. You were just talking about schools, and that is 100% on Burlingtonians right now, and that's a lot. Second thing is for Act 127 or the weighted pupils that you were talking about. To move to a foundation formula, what we're looking at in the numbers is the foundation one thing, but it's those weights that are so crucial and that we fought for.
Yes.
So, and that for over 20 years were wrong, and that we've been paying for that. Weights that the governor is proposing are not 127 weights from a totally different study. And that would be a huge loss for Burlington. I mean, we are looking, if they use those, 150 teachers would have to be laid off, like huge. So it's really important that we talk about all of those things. And I was just had a question about when you said that we would buy down with the surplus. Won't that lead to a fiscal cliff next year if we
Yes.
used all the money to buy it down? So again, is it smart to say like we should do that this year? Because the federal government also concerns me in addition to thank you for any insights on those.
Sure. I guess I would say, let's talk about smart. So in a democracy, the voters are never wrong, right? So if I get thrown out, it's my fault, not the voters' fault. So on buying down the property tax, you remember when I started my story, I said, "Sure, we bought it down as much as we thought was fiscally responsible, and that was 13.8%. Voters very clearly told us we were nuts. And I'm willing to respond to it. So what we've done, our finance committee and the House Means Committee, is we've said, okay, the governor, I'm going to admit, got a mandate on that issue. So we lost 6 people in the Senate because we were concerned about the cliff that you're talking about. What we're talking about is if you buy the rate down, that's the new normal. So if you buy it down 120 million, next year it's there again. You got to come up with 20 million more. So you're putting yourself in a hole every time down. It used to be that we would only buy the rate down 2-3% at most. Again, hearing the message from the voters that people were strapped, people losing their homes because they couldn't afford the property tax, we have committed this year doing it the governor's way. And with his help and his tax commissioner to create a workable plan that will get us down to an average of 0 or 1. But you're right, it's in some ways a bargain with the devil because you're paying. To consolidation, what I would say is consolidation and construction should go is the way I look at it. So if you're going to tell a community you have to close a school and in another school, that school has to have enough room. It has to be proper building. And so there are any number of districts out there that they need, but they don't have enough space if they do. So in my mind, that community should be for help with state aid to build a new facility. So we should get to, because right now there's a moratorium on state aid. Lift the moratorium. We should get back in the business of aiding schools, buildings, but we should prioritize because we don't have a ton of money. So we should say, if you're going along with our desire to cut costs, close the school and, riff those teachers, perhaps, in return, should step up and help you build a new facility. That will get a process of building. We haven't been building schools. If you eliminate Burlington, we're doing in large part on our own, although I would rush to say the legislature got dollars for the new high school, and we just used the last of it. That was $3 million to move kids down to where my daughter Macy's. $3 million to move the kids there, and then we got 16 million to remediate the materials and remove contaminated materials from the site. So if you take out Burlington, nobody is building a new building in the last 40 years or 35 years. Back in that business, the governor talks a lot about demographics in Vermont, young families, and by the way, welcome. Glad to have you here. Attract new people and new families is to give them state-of-the-art education.
Thank you so much, Senator. I wanted to invite you to like the best way for more people to get in touch with you. I wish we could take more questions, but I want to make sure we do finish our agenda tonight. I know I put some info up there with your email, but maybe you could share. Us. Yeah, right here.
Best way, this is the worst way to get in touch.
Yeah, erase that. Great.
Best
Showing up at your NPA meeting sometimes. Thanks, everybody, for your and the engagement.
address, I check it every day. The at this point, the legislative or others will tell you, is just overrun with automatic emails. Hundreds of emails pour in and I can't sift through it. But if you have an issue, email me. I'll get back.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did want to invite you, Bob, before you get to whatever you're discussing. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Senator. And thank you everyone for your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everything. Thanks for being here and for bringing these important topics. Abby Duke won't be able to join us, but Bob Hooper just walked in to offer you some room if you wanted to make some announcements or updates about the world and give folks a chance to ask you some questions if you want.
Phil, I'm sure covered most of the stuff. Something on paper today that said 1% on the yield bill, so it looks like that's what we're heading for. And his characterization of buying down the debt was 100% on. It's not a great thing to do. The other thing that I'll mention, we talk about things, is closing schools. It leave a burden because you have a tendency, like this building that we're in, isn't this? And then the National Guard basically gave it up, and shenanigans that I got into with somebody, we ended up getting control of the city, and that's a great thing. It's community. In the smaller towns where you're saying it's time for you to give up one of your schools, it's going to worry auditorium. Still got to keep it up. Still got to spend money. So sometimes it's a gift that keeps on taking. So anyway, I know you heard Phil. Anybody have any questions for the House? Sarah?
We have a housing. So I would argue that any community that wants, we have another use for it. So I would not actually let that. We have beautiful housing in old schools. That wasn't my comment. In your committee, Cooper, you have 5 charter changes from the city of Burlington, and they're moving too fast. And I'm just curious if you could comment on that.
Actually, a couple of them just got sent down. The city clerk's office just sent them down, and I sent to legislative council to be written up. Charter changes are a different thing, where you hear people on the news talking about crossover for money bills. Charter changes can come in and be dealt with at any time. After the rush of getting what somebody else thinks is really important table, you pick up the other stuff. So we'll probably a week or two.
That's the 3 most current from town meeting. You still have
the police oversight and the guns and bars. Was that?
In March.
Yeah.
Redistricting was in March.
That's, yeah. Mhm.
And just conservation was.
The guns and bars thing is different because also put in statewide. Personally, I don't think that, you know, I get in trouble for saying this, and that's why I say this. I don't think you should go to chicken wings down in South Burlington, cross over to Burlington, and all of a sudden you're in a different world of ball and sea. That's just sort of weird. I'd rather see and alcohol don't mix, then they don't mix in the whole state. So. Oh, yeah, we'll be getting to 'em. Oh, actually, we did, wrote some notes on things that had nothing to do with this. But we did like a down today, which was just a quick one. So they're filtering their way into the soup, whether it's a tasty soup or not. That
And the two older ones, the Just Cause and the police oversight.
we talked about the police oversight one last year, but it didn't have action on it. So, oh, that, no, we haven't. It hasn't been written yet. So, you know, the process, send the stuff down, ledge council turns it into an actual, gets introduced, bill gets sent to committee, committee takes testimony on the floor, and then it maybe goes over to the Senate, depending on one. So it's a drawn out process. Other questions?
Yeah, I'd love your support. I think it's for H38, which would increase the capacity of the Human Rights Commission. I think really crucial protection measure as we face an onslaught of potential public discrimination for protected categories here in Vermont.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Although, what Phil was talking about basically is that we were able to school tax thing last time because we had a lot of leftover federal money that's gone. So when somebody comes in and wants to, office professional regulation wants to put somebody in charge of mental health, so they're dedicated to that, they can keep it under one thumb, but they need to put that, and money is just really scarce. Thank you. Others? Do a brief interpretive dance. Okay, thanks. Seriously. Okay.
Anything about the school lunch program? Is there, you know, anything going on with that? What's going on statewide with that?
Our kind of house position, education has been continued to fund. I always hesitate to come here and say what we've done in the House because anything that we do goes to appropriations, and as happened, we put like $220,000 into community radio, which is like the small stations that come on when there's a flood or something, and they, you know, basically do your neighbor. Appropriations pulled that money out because they wanted to do something else with it. So that sort of, there are things that you might read in Front Porch Forum that seem to be right and seem to be, and then something weird happens. It's always a question of priorities. The one priority, generally speaking, is green and it has a number on it. So we're trying. We think it, I mean, from the standpoint, kids growing up healthy and knowledgeable and will to learn can't be beat. Money that's well spent. Standpoint of the bridge that needs replaced. We can always say, you know, have a couple more bucks you'd like to throw, usually go over well either.
So back to the, what Sarah was at, if we pass something in Burlington and it goes to the legislature, like last November, it hasn't been acted on. I don't really understand how all that works. Why is that not been acted on yet? And if that hasn't been acted on yet, does it mean the stuff that we voted on in March won't be acted on? for another 6 months or so, or who decides what bubbles to the top?
That's a good question. I've been there 6 years and I haven't figured that out yet. But generally, you know, the Speaker of the House has the ability to set the program for the House. We have comes from Burlington, so Burlington issues have a tendency to bubble up. And the committee chair has the next level of, this is what I'd like to take up next phenomenon. Because our committee, the Government Operations, oversees the Secretary of State's office. You don't think it's going to happen, but all of a sudden when Phil mentioned either 5 districts or whatever Scott was talking about today, we district the whole state into, you get the ballot for this person to turn it, and you get the ballot for that one. And we just came off of really put a lot of work into a major flummox down in Bennington. People on one side of the street were in one district, people on the other side of the street were in the other district, and did not pick that up. So the whole street full of people got the wrong ballot, discover it until 2 elections had gone by. So everybody's a little sensitive about that at this point. So it's everything.
Is there
Priorities.
somebody we should be contacting, Secretary of State or something, to get things? to
No,
roll?
somebody actually, I did not know that stuff had, usually the city clerk contacts me because that didn't happen. New administration, who knows why. The village council people says, I have this stuff, what do you want me to do with it? I just said, write it up. So it's in that process now.
My name is Jane and I live in Ward 7, and I didn't quite understand you to the universal school lunch program. I'm hoping I'm hearing you.
You probably are.
That's what I want to clarify, because
I support school.
what you said was, it's important that kids eat so they learn and all that, but then we have are you saying the bridge is more important than the kids eating? What are you saying here? I didn't get it.
No, I'm basically saying there's only so much money to go around, and even there's just realities. I think that's
It's a reality, but firmly believe that we need to feed our children so that they can learn.
and I
Start life. we're
and I
talking
do
about.
too.
I am sorry, but I really strongly, if Governor Phil Scott's office, I said, if they cut lunches for our kids, voting for him again. I cannot justify that.
Well, that idea anyway, but yeah, just to be clear, when school lunches comes up, that gets my vote because I work for social services for a long time, and I see what kids that are properly nutritioned and taken care of it ends up. So close to my heart, but that's a good thing. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to invite you, Bob, the way that Phil did, if there's the best way to get in touch with you, if people have more questions or other concerns that they wanted to contact you about.
Designated email, it's just state rep Hooper@gmail on everything that I put in Front Porch Forum. Kind of easy to talk to State Rep Hooper, you put that in address block. And that has a tendency, what Phil said about an email is we just it, and if you don't, like I'll go home tonight and say hello to my wife, and then I'll delete email for the rest of the evening. So it gets a response.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here tonight.
Again, thanks everybody for your questions. And now I wanted to invite, Ward 4, Sarah Carpenter up to give some of her updates, and to take the floor as we're getting closer and closer to home, here in Burlington. So if you there, if you want, or wherever you're comfortable.
Standing behind some people, so. Thanks. I'm really happy to answer questions. I would say the issue of the day is the budget, 6. So, in terms of the budget process, we actually budget until June, but we're starting now. We did, strategic decision to not ask for a new general fund in March. Doesn't mean your taxes won't go up. It's just have to decide in March whether you're going to do that in March. Choosing not to do it limits your revenue sources because locked into whatever revenue sources we have. So we're in the process of how to pay for everything. We've identified at least a $2.5 million gap after a few proposals on the table. We went through and basically funding every department, which effectively works like a 4% decrease. We're locked in. Most of our 80% of our costs are personnel. We're locked in. So we've done that. We've done work with department heads, reductions. We're looking at an initiative. We're going to functions. We've identified at the moment 2 areas. One is administrative departments, which is clerk, treasurer, accounting, the assessor's office, IT, human resources, putting that in one department, which should get us. We're also looking at a merger, the CEDO office and workforce and development. So we should get that. We've called Modern Gov, I think, which is identified, look at, but won't be probable to implement for FY. And we've completed what we're calling a service inventory, the goal of which is to look at what does every department provide for, and what do we sort of have to do either by ability or charter, and what is there, are there some things? One of the not is under consideration is whether we should be doing recycling, and you'll probably be hearing about that. So that's kind of where we're at today with the budget increase or tax increase. So we're plucking away at, there are certain things we have little control over, like the revenue needed to debt service and retirement. We're obligated to do that. There will be an increase. We also have, which people don't realize, what we call 13 splinter tax. Believe it or not, there's a county tax. We have a sheriff who we support. We support a courthouse. We have Green Mountain Transit, which we don't support enough, but that's an obligation. We have the solid waste district, a bunch of things. So we have no control of it. Taking kind of the bulk of our attention these days. In terms of other initiatives, I'm really probably better off answering, because we are going to Monday consider taking a step forward and looking at the redevelopment of again, that's a massive endeavor. Put an RFP out, and we're now looking at kind of a second step. We're going to start looking at, as part of that, if we reach rail block, we're going to have to move the #1 fire station. It's fall anyway. The same thing that created the Foundation Problem Memorial is the fire station. So we have to do something with that fire station, even if we don't do. And in you've heard lots of discussion about the state of station. It's very inadequate. Our best thinking is we'd love perhaps a public safety building with both fire and police in it. Very preliminary, so we're starting to look at that. I have to license your cat. Yes. Don't have to leash them, you only have to license them. Oh,
Hey, Sarah, did you vote for it or
the
vote against?
licensing of the cats?
Yeah.
I will tell you, the ordinance committee spent an inordinate amount of listening to dozens and dozens of people. There was an 80 report from a citizen committee that had, you cannot believe in it. And I really did a very thoughtful job. And people are very quite passionate whether there should be free roaming cats or not, equity between dogs. And I believe the proposal to license the cat, which by the way, communities does. South Burlington has been doing it for a decade. South Burlington has managed just fine licensing cats. And it will allow homeowners playing with a cat pooping in their garden to identify the cat. To identify the cat.
So I have some questions if you don't mind me obviously asking.
Expertise.
So sorry, Sarah. I just have questions. Say the cat is defecating in someone's garden and that person gets fined $200.
I don't, whatever the fine is.
It's $200. Gonna happen if they can't pay it or refuse to pay it?
Same thing with. You'll
So
have to-
does it become like a criminal thing? Are people and like
you can pay your tickets over time. So
what?
I honestly think there's a lot of overreaction. First of all, we really need to probably a dedicated officer, which we don't have in our budget. I think the CSOs who do it are really quite reasonable. We're in a fine place. You know, I don't really, and it creates equity with dogs and cats, and it will be the same implementation. And people are very concerned, and this, I think, just to identify the cat who's a nuisance will be a step forward. As a matter, they will send a CSO to your house. You will have a discussion. If it's a repeat, we'll talk about a fine. Yes. Yeah.
I'm Annie Lawson. You probably recognize me because sometimes I do activism that aligns with the Progressive Party is championing. So often I'm like, maybe not, I'm answering you and challenging you. I'm genuinely curious. I've been much less plugged in. Genuinely curious if you can talk about some things that the Democratic city councilors have done coordination with the mayor's administration office, because there are so many challenges everyone agrees are challenges that should be addressed. And I'm curious to hear the ways that really joined with the mayor to find common ground.
You know, I think if you look at what we passed and done, there's a number of things we do them unanimously. They don't get any coverage in bigger. You know, a lot of day-to-day stuff. I mean, zoning ordinances. We spend time on zoning ordinances. Those often are passed unanimously. Hard on that. A lot of the transportation utilities or something, those get passed unanimously. I honestly think if you look at the operation city, and a lot of what we pass is just that. So I feel like we have what you see, I think, in twofold, and this is why I town meeting got a little punchy, so to speak. And I think political, not practical, that was not governance, that was politics. You know, I think in terms of bills, the majority of what's got by or introduced by the administration, we did pass. So, you know, there were some that we haven't concurred on. But I think most of the things we have a difference of approach. And I'm happy to talk like if you've got a specific bill ordinance, I'd be happy to sort of comment on that. Well, I think we lose, and this is my personal opinion, is I think we often, both sides, propose things a little too prematurely. They're more philosophical. You know, we had a proposal weeks ago about oversight of homeless shelters. In my opinion, and I asked personally withdrawn, it was premature. We really needed it shouldn't have been done by resolution. So I think again, things pop up and they're imminent. People are concerned. I don't want to, but I think we on both sides have a tendency to move too quick and not do it by resolution. I think the things that actually have worked, ones we have to dig in, like zoning, like the neighborhood code. And that took, hate to diminish the pet policy, but that took a ton of work, you know. And I mean, we had all flavors of all people, all parties wanting to get that. I think on the transportation side, there's definitely disagreements on the energy oversight. And then there's been a variety of those. You really need to sit down and dig in them. I think sometimes things get proposed too quick, my personal opinion. And I think we need to guard ourselves a little bit. And I'm optimistic that we're in a little bit better place now, and two new councils with lots of good new energy. So I'm sort of looking forward to that. Okay.
Thanks, Sarah, for being here and questions and being put on the spot.
Yeah.
So here I go.
Okay.
So we have five, and it doesn't look like the governor is going to budge on this motion. It would be a great surprise if that happens, but is the plan in 5 days with a lot of people in Burlington, and you know, we got this description of people in disabilities, more than 1, 2, and 3 children. So what's the city council thoughts about this?
But I, first of all, and I wish I'd have a little, every single person in this room should be talking to every single person they know that does Burlington. This is a county problem. $500 million gap. We spend $8 million in thing out of miscellaneous general fund money serving the unhoused. We are the community in the state that does that. And that is incredibly frustrating. We still, but we're at our max. People will be living, that is the ultimate reality. Those of you in the faith, there is no other shelters outside the city of Burlington. You know, we're demonstrating, but I want to go to University Mall and demonstrate, you know. So I may be sounding a little defensive, but it can't be Burlington solution to solve. It's painful. I mean, we have hunger. Well, we cannot be the only municipality that feeds people. We need to be a universal lunch, as an example. We quite a strong coordinating role. We're prepared to be, you know, we need more organization, and I out. Honestly, we are. So And I have some great staff working on it. Sarah Russell, we added a professional position and she does a great job, absolutely a great job. But she can't go to Essex and say, Essex, you need a shelter. We need the governor. And so I think the plea to at least be warmer weather, you still got people outside. We will do the best we can. It will be better in the summer in the sense that I don't think I get 300 people all in Burlington, because I think in the summertime, sadly, people do disperse more. We have many more concerns when the weather gets, they kind of come hunker down. They want to be near a building, want protections. It's a worse problem. I wish I had a better answer. And, like I said, sustaining even the 8 million we put in, that's like trash cans, extra DPW time. We clean up massive amounts of cleanup. I think it doesn't cost much, but it costs a lot of money. And it's not coordinated response. As I said, they're not protesting in Berlin, which happens to be the hometown of the governor, in Berlin, probably. And we need help. We're gonna patch it through, I think, as I can say. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is, I completely agree. And I just also want to say one thing about that is like for those elected officials, we can't do it alone. And so I think what Sarah is really saying is like calling 5 people who should be calling 5 people who should be calling 5 people to talk and call the governor. Like that's where some of the change is happening, and state reps or people that we know, because our city council is already doing well. I think it really does take all of us to be voicing our concerns. But our question to you was, I really did want to know about the recycling program. That seems a little minor, but I just wanted to hear what you guys were talking about, and I really hope you're not recycling for the city of Burlington.
It was presented to us as Monday, so I wanted to put it out. I personally have asked, my gut is it's probably not, but I personally asked the DPW director to say, how much does it cost to pick up per incident per unit? That's a number. Cost if we contract it out, that's a number. And we don't have that data. And I think that's, in my opinion, prematurely, because I can't compare costs one way or the other way. It to be blunt, it's difficult service for the city to offer. We have struggles getting drivers, and we have to pull the drivers from other jobs because we need it's sort of an organizational issue, and then there's just plain money. We're trying to put everything on the table. Park is by far our biggest general fund department outside police. Police and fire are 40% of our general fund budget. So they're huge, but not making cuts there. We're looking at efficiencies. I think we're look at difficult activities, let me put it that way, that we may have. That was probably easier for certain because it's very discrete and identifiable. But personally, I think we're a little, I don't know what we're going to save because you're going to have to pay for it somewhere else. And then downsides of if you have to pay for it out of your pocket, will you really do it? Not, and then that's self-defeating, maybe we do it and, I don't know that privatizing it is necessarily going to get us where we need another revenue source along with it.
Well,
We'll double the cat licenses and maybe we'll.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Thank you so much for answering questions and being here. I wanted to invite you the way everybody else for the best way to people to get in touch with you.
My, and my phone up there and I'm always.
Oh, yeah, there's the markers over
Yeah.
there.
Please call.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for being often at these meetings. So I'm here to continue to come back. Yeah. It's a, thank you so much, everyone. Take some leftovers home and come back, put your chairs away. I think anybody. Yeah, but sometimes we have to put them away, so don't know either.
Just hide that.
But yeah, our next meeting is the last Wednesday, or not the last Wednesday, fourth Wednesday of April.
Oh, it's probably.
That concludes the March meeting for wards 4 and 7. Everyone,
I understand.
and thank you for